Hi, we're EC1 and this is the Life in FinTech podcast, a podcast about living and working in the world of FinTech, brought to you by EC1 Partners.
Hi, and welcome to Life in FinTech podcast. I'm Sam, and I work at EC1 Partners in London. I'm the people officer, and I've been at EC1 for a considerable amount of time now. And we're doing a podcast series on pretty much how people found themselves in FinTech, but not only that, in recruitment. So I'll hand you over to my colleague to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Kishan. I'm currently an executive consultant here at EC1 Partners. I've been with the business now for just under 2 years. So yeah, time has literally flown by.
And going back to the beginning, Kishan, how did you start your career, full stop, pretty much? Where did it begin?
Yeah, so I went to university, sort of take it back all the way to there. I studied computer science and went into the world of software dev. Just
going back slightly prior to university, because you never know who our listeners are. How did you decide to do that? What took you to that degree?
In all honesty, it was a weird story. I was doing my A levels, and I was with an interesting group of friends at the time, and at that moment they were like, "I bet you can't do a computer science degree," and it was more of a challenge than sort of let's do this based on something I actually wanted to pursue, and fell into that world and decided to take it on, and ended up doing quite well, to be fair. Which sort of led me to I guess following getting into the world of software development, where I initially started my career. That later led to me realizing that I wasn't sort of cut out for it, and it wasn't something that I particularly enjoyed, more so from a personality perspective, and ended up in the world of sales, and then eventually fell into the world of recruitment.
So just talk to me more about, I guess, you said the personality fit. So you obviously spent a lot of time studying computer science. You put a lot of efforts into it. So at what stage did you think, I might not want a career in this? And was that kind of hard to overcome?
It wasn't hard to overcome. I think I had that epiphany when I was coming to the latter end of my course, and during that time it was, I want to give it a go, see how it goes. Maybe I might enjoy it. But at that moment, I didn't really know what other avenues I could explore. And I think, I wanted to utilize my IT degree to an extent, because I spent so much money and time invested into it. So I thought I'd try it out. And I realized as soon as I went into that field and started to work more within sort of software engineering, I realized it wasn't for me. I wanted to be more sort of interactive, be more consultative. And at the time, I didn't really know many roles out there that could, support my genuine interest, and somehow fell into the world of recruitment, where I thought I could utilize both my technical skills and my people skills, and combine them both into more of a consultative role.
So at what stage did you realize there was the field of recruitment? Because I think a lot of people I speak to, and it's especially when I first got into recruitment, it's not something that necessarily always comes up at a careers fair. It's not necessarily something that you're told at school or university, "Oh, why don't you go and be a recruitment consultant?" So when you were kind of challenging your old role and knowing that you wanted more out of a new role, how did you come across recruitment?
It was actually from one of my close mates, Sarang. He
Someone always knows someone in recruitment.
Yeah, he actually was in law, and then he fell into the world of recruitment himself. And then he was telling me about what he's been up to, and the commission, and more around the consultative part. And I think the more he started to engage with me around that and tell me more about the idea of recruitment and what it entails and stuff, it got me more excited. And I think him knowing me quite well personally, he suggested that I should give it a go and see how you find it. And ever since then, haven't really looked back.
So how did you go about switching from, I guess, sort of like computer science, software roles into recruitment? At this stage, did you have a good LinkedIn network, or was that something that came later?
I think it came later. What happened to me was I went into the world of IT sales initially. I thought, being in a sales type role and sort of having an element of IT in there based on, previously doing software engineering, that was something that I wanted to keep. However, what I shortly realized was the project life cycles that I was involved with were far too long for me to start seeing any sort of return on investment, and for me that was taking too long for where I wanted to get to.
So would you call yourself a little impatient?
Yeah, for sure. But then I saw what the potential recruitment had, and I guess for me it felt like a faster route to attracting the things that I wanted in my personal life, and seeing that it was in a similar style where you're going to be consultative and focus more on that sales element, but also interacting with people and providing the best level of service. I was like, well, why not give this a go and sort of fall into it. Initially, I fell into the world of accounting and finance recruitment, so it was just a foot in the door into a space.
Yeah. And when you did, and when you were doing that, was you thinking to yourself, oh no, I'm not using my degree? Or was you a bit like, oh, okay, do you know what? I'm doing a job where I'm working more with people. And like you said, it had more aspirations. And I guess it kind of went with your personal aspirations. So yeah, could you kind of put the degree into one box and think, okay, now I'm doing sort of like the accounting side of things? Or was you still a bit like, I need to still use my degree?
No, by that time, I wasn't really focused so much on utilizing the skills that I learned from my degree. It was more so that I had those skills in the back of my hands, and for me at that moment it was about learning new skills that I would not have learned in a classroom. More of those, that sort of interpersonal skills, and sort of making sure I'm more sort of confident and how I present myself, and really sure that I can be as persuasive as possible, but also have that level of interaction where people would want to sort of reach out and sort of speak with me around potential opportunities.
So from getting your sort of foot in the door in the accountancy recruitment, correct me if I'm wrong, you then came and found EC1, right?
So I was in accounting and finance recruitment for about 2.5 years, and then found EC1, and ever since then haven't really looked back.
The rest is history. So when you sort of came across EC1, being a FinTech recruitment company, did you think to yourself, can I do FinTech recruitment? Was there any questions about what is FinTech? Or do you feel like your knowledge of FinTech and the recruitment world at this stage was quite advanced?
No, there was still a whole element of learning. I came in with an open mind and knowing that I probably didn't know anything about the industry itself. However, I did understand what technology was, and from my background, and I wanted to use that and leverage off that to be able to have these strong sort of technical discussions with people. The learning of the industry came from sort of speaking to more candidates in the market, speaking to the guys internally, learning off some of the senior consultants, but also just making sure I networked more effectively in the space.
And since you've been at EC1, I guess there's probably been many highs and maybe fewer lows.
Yeah.
What would you say your best part of the role is?
My best part of the role, honestly, it's probably finding that sort of ideal candidate, their dream role. I think the reward where you're able to understand what a candidate is really looking for, and try and pinpoint exactly what could be a great opportunity for them, even if they might not see it themselves, and really working together with them to try and help them through each round as such, to essentially get them to where they need to get to. But also that whole constant consulting element to it, where they don't see you as just a recruitment consultant, but more of an advisor, where they can actually rely on you and listen to why they think these are the reasons as to why it's a great opportunity, and why it could be something for them to consider in the long term.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of going back to the beginning of what you were looking for out of a job. You knew you wanted something a bit more with a personality and more personable, and I guess where you can kind of form deeper connections as opposed to selling a software. So we're now at EC1. Tell everyone about the last year at EC1, because you have been promoted more than once.
It's been an amazing year. I think the first 6 months that I joined, I spent most of that time, well, pretty much all of that time, learning the ropes, understanding, what good looks like in my market, but also knowing where to pick up new and sort of exciting opportunities. But since then, that whole year has been a lot of learning and just being very organized and really changing the way that I used to do recruitment before from my previous roles, and learning it from the best, from my managers and directors and also the guys internally as well, from people that have actually had previous successes before. And that's sort of been the journey that I've been on, not being afraid to sort of ask any question and also just putting in that sort of consistent effort throughout the year. I think that's what got me to where I wanted to get to. Very fortunate enough not very fortunate, but I think the hard work showed that it wasn't just more than one promotion. It was, it was two, but also getting me to where I wanted to get to in terms of hitting annual incentive and all these other amazing perks that came with that year.
Yeah, my next question was, what really motivates you? And I was going to say, apart from EC1's amazing incentives, we're actually going to Mexico towards the end of the year for our annual incentive. So yeah, besides the sort of every quarter holidays or prizes, what would you say has motivated you the last year, I guess, to get to where you are from where you were?
I think for me, it's the technical element, being able to understand more about this space. I really enjoy having like deeper conversations around things that I personally find interesting. So that was driving me, but also I guess my own personal circumstances. I want to be able to have different things that in terms of luxuries, and for me it's very money motivated. Not trying to sound like the typical recruiter in that sense, but I think there's other aspects into for myself. I wanted to grow and learn my sort of public speaking and get more involved with interacting with people, but to also feel more confident in myself. And I think that was a driver based on just learning the process, being organized, and just sort of asking questions throughout each stage, really.
Yeah, and I think, look, you've certainly done that. I think the back of last year, Kishan actually did a talk, I guess similar to what we're doing now, at his university, and he was pretty much advising over like 80 students on pretty much his life now. So how did you find that? I know you were slightly nervous at the time, but how did you find that? And I guess, is that something you want to continue to do? Because, our conversation here is pretty much raising awareness about getting into fintech, life in fintech, potentially associating your degree with it, potentially not even having a degree. How did you find that talk? And, is that something that you're going to continue to do?
Yeah, for me personally, definitely. When I first did it, it was the first big talk that I did. I previously did a few smaller ones at like schools and colleges and stuff, but less relevant towards fintech. So this was the first real step into that world. It was very nervous I was quite nervous at the beginning. I literally felt like my legs were shaking the whole time. But when I started to get more into a rhythm and flow, it became more sort of natural. It was just more of a conversation. And I think that's where the excitement and passion sort of came out as well, because having these conversations on a daily basis with interesting candidates and clients, and learning more about a market that's forever emerging and consistently evolving. I think being able to sort of share that knowledge with people, being more sort of advisory focused, it's something that I'm genuinely interested in. So definitely see that going toward being a direction that I want to go towards.
Yeah, and you mentioned just before, you said, I don't want to be sounding like a typical recruitment consultant. So what sets you aside from a typical recruitment consultant?
I would say your motivations being driven other than money, but also having a genuine interest in the space that you're in. I think that's what sort of stands you apart.
Yeah.
The hard work, the consistency, and all that will fall into place if it's something that you actually want to learn and have a genuine interest around. And I think because of my initial background within tech and sort of finding EC1 and just learning more about FinTech, and I guess how I can utilize those initial learnings and into my conversations, that was the big marry up for me, and that's what sort of excites me to I guess to sort of stand out against others.
Okay, and if you could go back, any age, what advice, what one or two bits of advice would you give yourself or anyone going into a new role, a new opportunity, building out a new career? Because I think there will be people listening, like yourselves, who did a degree and kind of had a small bit of direction or their interest, but there's also quite a lot of people out there that have no idea what they want to do, and they might not be able to marry their interest into a career. So what advice would you give anyone based on that?
So I've had a thought about this before, and I was at that similar phase as well, where I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I would say spend a lot of time self-reflecting on the things that you personally enjoy, and the things that that would excite you and you actually care about. And then once you've done that, you see what your strengths are in terms of the things that you've maybe learned from an education standpoint, and see if there's any way that you can sort of marry up things where where you want a career to go towards as well. Even if you've done a degree in something, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to pursue it. It's a skill set that you've learned. There's a lot of amazing people that have not sort of got to that level of education as such. So I think being able to really pinpoint what you're excited about and just focus on that will naturally spark a lot of passion, interest, and your hard work should align with that to give you the success you need.
That's a great bit of advice. It was great talking to you today, and congratulations on your double promotion, and I can't wait to see what 2023 brings you.
Big things.
Very big things. Thank you.
Awesome.
You've been listening to Life in FinTech by EC1 Partners. Find us at ec1partners.com or follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook and Instagram.